So what do you do when you want to write something, but you don't really know what you're going to write? Yeah, you're right. That sounds kind of dumb maybe, but what I mean is, what if you have a vague idea of what you want to write about, but you don't have any real specifics in mind yet? The yet part, that's the important bit. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to Tabletop Alchemy, where sometimes we just sit and write off the cuff, off the top of the head, off the deep rail, and we thank our patrons just for being there. You guys are much appreciated. Okay, so I'm at a point where I want to start doing some lore writing for the Cascade Skirmish game. Now, when I started this little game design project, I did mention having an idea for the setting of the game that's from some old comic book story idea I'd had a long time ago. But the bottom line is, I never really developed that story. I had a vague outline for, like for the first issue of a comic series, but I never developed it, really. But even so, I never really forgot the core concept, and I guess that's why it popped up in my head when I got this idea for this domino tile game. It seemed to gel nicely with the overall idea of the Cascade game itself, with this idea of mixing genres. If I'm going to put this game book together, the story and the setting, it's all got to work and it's got to be cool, right? So to kickstart some ideas, to sort of, to ripcord the flow motor, we just want to get in the flow, but we don't know kind of how to start that. Obviously, the first thing, maybe the only thing, is we just got to start typing. Like literally just start putting words and lines on a page. Now I knew like format-wise that I'm probably gonna want some chunk of lore here at the beginning of the rulebook to introduce the setting, right? I mean, that seems like a standard thing in skirmish games. So I just wrote down the first thing that occurred to me when I was staring at this blank page. We don't know who built it. And then I just rolled with that. And it seemed to me that first sentence sounded like it was someone talking. And I thought, well, maybe this whole little intro thing is someone talking to the reader. I wasn't really sure about it, but it doesn't really matter. All that mattered was that, I'm seeing some words on the page. But because that idea of someone talking was the next thing that occurred to me, I just rolled with it. Is there another word for rolling with things? Because I seem to do a lot of rolling with it. We don't really even know why. Some say it's a trial, a test. Some believe it's a zoo. Now, right here, I don't really like the word zoo, but I do like the connotation of what the guy is saying here. But instead of like stopping here and futzing around with the word choice and, like doing real writing here, I reminded myself that this is just rough draft, stream of consciousness, flow kind of stuff, so just keep going. So, some believe it's a zoo, some a game. The sorcerer proposes the notion of an alternate dimension. The soldier thinks it's a battlefield. The scientist, an echo chamber of quantum vibrations. Yeah, man, this is first draft nonsense. And if you're not me, you're not sharing your thing with anybody yet, so don't sweat all the cheesiness. That bad writing, it just doesn't matter. It's not what this is about right now. Right now, you and I, we have total freedom to splash paint on the canvas and worry about cleaning up the room later. Now, as cheesy as whatever that line was, the cool thing is I unconsciously started to riff on one of the core facets of the game, that being it's designed to allow the use of fantasy and sci-fi miniatures. This sort of clash of genres that I was talking about. And I kind of tagged that mentally as something to hone in on later. So let's keep rolling, right? An echo chamber of quantum vibrations. They might all be correct. Now, where I come from, there was a place affectionately called, at one point in its history, the Great Melting Pot. The first sphere at the top of the Cascade is a wild example of that, no doubt. If you survive the shock of that place, but don't wish to assimilate, there is only the descent for you. In that, we are connected, you and I. And now it's raining hard outside, which is a rare occurrence here in Southern California. So you're probably going to hear that in the background. You're welcome. Obviously here, I'm totally running with this notion that the writer or speaker here is directly addressing the reader now, right? Rolling on. How did it come to this? Seekers seeking the same legend, fighting to be the first to find a thing that may not even exist. Followers of the same faith maybe, yet at odds with each other over something that could save us all. Competition driven by the transmigration gate intervals, I suppose. I wish you the best of luck in your odyssey. I'm just about bled out. Vision's getting all swimmy. Suppose I'll know in a few heartbeats if dying is the only escape from this place. Although I truly do hope it ain't. Keep descending. Find the final sphere. Make the myth true. Alright, so yeah, it's pretty clunky in some spots. I mean, you know, transmigration gate intervals. It's my little homage to George Lucas dialogue. Come on, man. Now, like I said, I don't know if this is the right approach to this piece or not, but I really liked how the guy just started talking about bleeding out. I don't know where that came from, but I kind of like it, and it made me interested all of a sudden in who this guy was, and, you know, why is he bleeding out? So that kind of made me like this style even more, and, you know, this sort of, hey, here's a character talking to you sort of thing, which is, you know, a standard technique used in all kinds of books, sure. But the cool thing for me here is that it spurred me into a round of writing a batch of these things. These little blurbs from weird people that live in the Cascade, apparently. And the rest of these, I mean, I've got like 7 or 8 so far. I started tagging these with little credits, like naming the character who was speaking, and I also gave them titles that sort of fit the, I don't know, like the field of knowledge they seemed to be hailing from. Now again, I'm not thinking much of this stuff through. My mission with this writing session was just to see if I could explore some of this sort of undefined world or setting that I had vaguely in my head, and I was just hoping to start to pull out some details, some shapes. And for me, it's working. In the course of writing down what these weirdos are saying, I was unconsciously starting to define certain things about the Cascade. Like this guy right here. He was the third bit I wrote up. He says something about his wife being a transcription archivist in the Hall of Scribes. Yeah, super original Hall of Scribes, I know. But as I wrote that, I was starting to think about the way people get into the Cascade. Like, I know ostensibly how someone arrives in this first sphere, or top sphere as it's called, right? And by extension, I was then thinking about how is society formed around a physical area where people can just suddenly appear. And they're all from all over the universe, from different worlds. And this term, transcription archivist, it kind of implied to me this notion that there must be a lot of transcription work going on. And I was thinking that, yeah, if you live in a city where people from all kinds of far off places just appear, like in the middle of your city at random times, and everyone here is from somewhere else, and you know everything about this place is kind of mysterious, there might be a lot of recording of people's reactions, or, you know, I don't know, history, like basically maybe when someone arrives here in the Cascade, they get interviewed by some officials from the Hall of Scribes or something to find out, you know, some facts and statistics and things, like where are they from, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. And of course, you know, there's going to be like some kind of security apparatus that has to deal with people just arriving out of nowhere. Anyway, it's all still kind of vague in my head, but I can see the shape of this vague thing becoming more defined now. More details becoming concrete, which in turn inspire more ideas and more details, etc., etc. And again, this is just rolling with the flow, seeing what comes out, and also having fun. That's a big part of this. Like, this guy's an oscillator. Now, what's an oscillator? Well, oscillations describe something going up and down, right? So he's like a trader who travels through these spheres, you know, making money or a living or whatever by carrying goods and services to people and places that are separated by distances, or in this case, by actual physical boundaries, right? I run trade up and down the Cascade. Been oscillating for 2 decades. You know, we had to make our own calendar down here. Same with the mead. I ain't had no hand in it, mine. Smart folks back, I don't know when, set up them chronomactica conventicles. That ain't nothing but a mouthful, huh? I just would have put in more holidays, you know? Ain't nothing like a day off with a dance and a cager from third sphere. What's that? Oh, well, I almost made it 18 spheres down, back when my knees ain't had to have these wraps on them, but, you know, 17 is worse than any story you ever heard of it. Kazak's file, them crazy caravan bastards, they hit 32, ways back. Most of them made it all the way back to top sphere, but, you know, they all come back glowing, right? Half the crew gone, but the rest of them with them shining eyes. And they talk up bucketfuls of crazy, don't they, boy? And we already in the Cascade, so, you know, ain't like weirds on a premium or nothing. Cleith Vorskalia, oscillator. As interviewed by the transcription archivist. Actually, she doesn't even do the interviewing because she's only a transcribing archivist. So there's some other person doing the interviewing. And no, I'm not going to apologize for that accent. I'm just having fun. and you can't take it away from me. As much as I've destroyed your fun having to listen to it. That's part of the fun too, for me. Anyway, it is fun for me. Like hearing these different individuals talk, it lends a lot of character to the characters. But yeah, what the hell's a chronomactica conventicle? I have no idea. I mean, I think they have something to do with establishing time measurement in the Cascade, which is a place where time, I guess, may not really work the same way as out in the universe proper. I mean, because they're inside of a singularity. So, I don't know. I didn't even think about that till old Cleeth Forscalia here mentioned decades, and that's when I was like, oh, time here probably isn't normal. And then he just went on that riff, and I also liked the bit where he says, sphere number 17, it's worse than you think. I thought that was a fun detail, and it's kind of inspiring ideas now about different spheres having different legends or stories about them and what those might be like to explore. And then I thought I might like to hear from some kind of city official, some kind of official person. And of course, we're ripping on sci-fi and fantasy stuff. So there's probably some hierarchy that's going on, and especially if you're in a big city, you know, so this Marchioness Nurelia, she's started talking about order and civility and how Tertia, which is the main city in the top sphere, has a sister city in the second sphere, which was kind of a new revelation to me. Like, oh yeah, there might be, from the top down, there's going to be the highest concentration of settlement or people will be in the top sphere, and it'll thin out as it goes down. Easily a lot of people could have flowed through into that sphere and set up a society there. So there's this second city that she talks about, and she started talking about all these different outfits that someone new to the Cascade might join. Outfits is the wrong word. You know, I was thinking of factions, but factions imply that they're opposing each other. But I was thinking that this city has some kind of hierarchy, and there's probably different groups, the military, you know, I don't know, just different facets of the city itself. I thought she would be a good point of contact to start like listing and riffing on some of these things, some ideas. And I was starting to think about how Queen Elizabeth started contracting privateers to attack Spanish ships, right? Way back 1500s. And how that idea, you know, maybe there are officially sanctioned or supplied files from the city. Remember, in this game, warbands are called files. So there might be files operating that are backed by this big metropolitan city-state that has formed here in the top sphere. And like, what does that mean for player-based files that maybe they're considered rogue or something? Or, you know, if they're not employed by the powers that be. She even says right here, privateer, hunt those files fool enough to go seeking myths and legends while squandering resources and pirating information and harboring fugitives and cutthroats and rogues and zealots. Or join the ranks of the Tertian Rangers, scouring the spheres for resources and intelligence. If you manipulate the psychic fields or practice sorcery, you'd best align yourself with the Mysterium and Athenium. Society does not tolerate unlicensed or wild magic. Again, this is all just free flow stuff. But now I'm having this idea of a government that has sort of coalesced in this weird Cascade space, and the government doesn't want a few things to happen. Governments like or need certain levels of control to maintain a society, but those needs might clash with newcomers who just want to get the hell out of this place that they find themselves in. It's like doing this kind of thing always makes me feel like I'm hiking across the top of an iceberg. I see these formations and details up here on the surface, but they're making me aware that there's a lot more stuff below the surface. And these little bits here are just evocative of a much larger thing. And of course, I had to write at least one blurb from a file leader, you know, or warband leader, just to see what they would say. Everyone says the final sphere gate is legend. Myth. On the world I'm from, people thought the oceans fell off a cliff into a dragon's mouth, until someone went to actually check, which of course is when they figured out the planet was round. No one here knows the Cascade is infinite for a fact. The lowest sphere breached so far, at least the one with the strongest level of documentation, is number 64. That file found the opposing gate to 65, but wasn't able to transmigrate for some fairly horrific reasons. You can look it up. What bugs my logic centers is that every sphere, I suppose aside from top sphere, depending on how you look at it, every sphere has two opposing gates. Gates that were built. So yes, who built these things? Why'd they build them? But most important to me is the question, where do they lead? Corwin's steadfast, file leader. And he's right, to me anyway. I want to know where the spheres lead to. Why are they all linked up with gates? That implies that they go somewhere, right? So this is all just to illustrate how just rolling with some words and some vague ideas will always generate more stepping stones. At least in my opinion, and at least in fiction writing. Maybe this sort of thing won't work for nonfiction, but maybe it could. I don't know. Try it. Now, I've said this in quite a few of my videos, I know, but I'm always just reminded that this process seems to work for me, and that process is let yourself have some free space to just ramble. And rambling can be done in any writing project, but rambling can also be done in any medium. You can ramble with a paintbrush. You can ramble with bits of plastic and cork and glue. You can just explore without a fixed goal. And oftentimes that playing around will generate ideas that you'll end up focusing on and developing. So, go get your ramble on. See ya.